For years, we've treated computer security like a single magical barrier. Just install a basic antivirus program, let it run, and assume you're perfectly safe. But modern cyber attacks rarely try to force their way through the front door. They arrive as invisible network requests, silently pinging your system, deceptive phishing sites trying to capture your passwords, or even someone physically walking away with your hard drive. To survive this, Windows relies on a deeply interconnected, invisible fortress built across 4 distinct layers: your network, your files, your operating system, and the physical hardware itself. To understand how this operates, we have to trace the exact path of a modern attack and watch how the system systematically dismantles threats at each of these 4 checkpoints. Mapping out this hidden ecosystem is the only way to realize just how much invisible cyber warfare your machine is fighting off every single day. Almost every digital attack begins at the exact same entry point: your active connection to the internet, where data is constantly flowing in and out. This is where the Windows Firewall acts as your strict network gatekeeper. If a random background application suddenly tries to broadcast your data out to an unrecognized server, the firewall steps in, forces it to hit a solid barrier, and drops the connection, while letting your normal web traffic pass right through. While the firewall polices that invisible background traffic, another tool called Smart Screen watches the exact things you actively click on. Every time you attempt to download an unfamiliar file, Smart Screen instantly checks it against Microsoft's massive database of known threats. If a website tries to serve you a malicious script disguised as an update, Smart Screen catches the discrepancy and freezes the process before you can even open it. Together, these perimeter tools filter out the vast majority of digital noise. But highly sophisticated malware is specifically designed to bypass the gates and land directly on your local drive. So what happens when a piece of malicious code successfully navigates the firewall, tricks the Smart Screen database, and downloads onto your computer? This triggers the second layer of defense. Windows Defender takes over, continuously scanning files and monitoring the behavior of applications in the background to catch any suspicious activity before the code fully executes. But occasionally, you face a dilemma. You might actually need to intentionally open an unfamiliar, unverified program for testing purposes, and you can't risk your actual machine to find out if it's safe. For this, you use Windows Sandbox. It generates a totally disposable, isolated copy of Windows inside your PC. You run the sketchy file in there, and if it unleashes a destructive payload, it's trapped. You simply close the sandbox, and the entire virtual machine is vaporized into nothingness. Catching harmful code in isolation neutralizes the immediate danger. However, plenty of legitimate applications actually require deep access to your system's core settings to do their jobs properly. Because of this, Windows operates on a principle of least privilege. By default, it keeps every application on a tight leash, deliberately denying them full administrative control over the operating system. If an application secretly attempts to cross that line, like trying to rewrite system registries or install hidden software in the background, the operating system reacts instantly. It triggers User Account Control, or UAC. This process completely halts the application in its tracks, dimming your screen and throwing up a strict manual prompt, forcing you to explicitly authorize the change before the vault door opens. There is a severe vulnerability here, though: alert fatigue. Because these comps appear so frequently for routine updates, users often develop a reflex to click yes without reading, effectively authorizing malware to dismantle their security from the inside. By bringing the process to a dead stop, UAC forces the ultimate security decision away from automated code and places the final responsibility directly in the hands of the human user. Even with the user actively monitoring software, there is a completely different kind of threat vector. An attacker might try to bypass the operating system entirely, or simply break into your house and steal your physical laptop. To prevent an attacker from sneaking malicious code into the system before Windows even turns on, Secure Boot intercepts the startup sequence. It meticulously verifies the digital signatures of the firmware components, only allowing the operating system to load if everything mathematically checks out. If the device itself is physically stolen, a feature called BitLocker acts as the final failsafe. It encrypts the entire hard drive, scrambling your data into an unrecognizable format, so that anyone pulling the drive out will just see unreadable gibberish without the correct recovery key. And for highly sensitive login details stored in the system memory, Credential Guard locks that data away in a virtually isolated room. Even if advanced malware manages to compromise the core operating system, it cannot access the specific memory sector holding your passwords. Securing the physical storage and the mathematical boot sequence ensures that the absolute foundational layers of the machine remain intact under the worst possible scenarios. When you look at this entire structure at once, you see a unified, fluid ecosystem of defenses silently communicating in the background. The deliberate redundancy is the brilliance of the architecture. If a malicious packet slips past the network firewall, Defender is waiting for it on the hard drive. If Defender misses a behavioral quirk, User Account Control steps in to block the final execution. What makes this genuinely impressive is that almost all of this intricate, overlapping architecture is enabled by default the moment you turn on a modern PC, fighting off an endless stream of threats without ever asking for your attention. Modern computer security functions as an invisible, integrated layer of the machine's own architecture, operating continuously at the deepest levels of the hardware.